This is just about the time each and every week I know that you naturally just get an itch to talk Florida State football, and we scratch that itch here at the Voice of College Football. Welcome to Florida State Seminoles Live, courtesy, yes, there he is, Jason Parker, NBC6. We hope to see Logan Robinson no game day. He's working hard elsewhere. Who knows about big game James Coleman, Jason?
I mean, I figure the Wi-Fi has to work at whatever park in Jacksonville he's at. Logan I wish Logan would work a normal schedule like me, 5 a.m. to 2 p.m. That's how ballers do if you want to be with Mark Rogers, the voice of college football. You got to do what you got to do.
There are priorities in life.
Okay. It's not like he's got a full-time job. I mean, he's still in school. It's not.
All right, you know the drill, folks. Leave your comments, your questions, anything that Jason and I will debate with you or between each other. Whatever it is, we'll take it on. Concerning Florida State football, the nation. Yes.
We're going to show up by the half-hour point because I can't do this hitting the like button myself. So, Logan, if you can hear us, you have 29 minutes to get here. Please.
If Logan is needed at work, I am guessing that he's not listening to us, if I'm putting those two things together.
I think he is. I think he cares enough to listen, but maybe his boss is like looking over him, saying you can't go. But Logan, if you can hear us, please. You have 28 and a half minutes, please. We're begging you.
Folks, before you get settled, please hit the like button. And you can share this video out on social media. So if you see, like, I send out a link prior to, and then Jason will retweet and others will retweet, please do the same. If you enjoy the conversation and hanging out with us for the hour each and every Wednesday evening, others will as well.
I mean, you get to talk Florida State. We get to make fun of Miami, make fun of Florida. It's a complete hour here with Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. It's what we do.
And then when we do the Miami show, then people have at Florida State. That's I just work as the moderator, the facilitator of it all. All right.
It's what we do here.
Asante Samuel, not taken in the first round as many expected, but he did slide to round number 2 to the Los Angeles Chargers to be a teammate of Derwin James.
And it did surprise me. We talked about it a little bit last week. I thought he would be a first-round pick, a late first-round pick. A lot of the mock drafts had him maybe going to the Saints, maybe stoking my thunder, having him go to the Ravens or going to the Bills, stuff like that. But, yeah, I think it's going to be a good fit with him with the Chargers. I think it's a good spot. I think, like you said, he has Derwin who can show him the ropes a little bit. If you're going to learn how to be an NFL defensive back, Derwin James is one of those guys you want to learn from. So I think it's a good move for him. I think my biggest question with him is going to be the expectations. Everyone knows what his dad did. His dad's a multiple-time Super Bowl winner with the Patriots. I think people need to this is Asante Samuel Jr. Let him go do his thing. Let him go out to the Chargers. They're going to get their butts kicked by the Chiefs, let's be honest. They're not going to win the AFC West this year, but let him go do his thing, let him build. And I think he has the potential to have a very decent professional career.
The draft analysts raved about Asante Samuel's ability and his most likely smooth transition to the NFL.
Which surprised me that he fell all the way to, I believe, the 47th pick in the second round. I mean, teams draft their needs, draft their wants. But you look at some of those options. You look at, Buffalo drafted Gregory Rousseau out of Miami at the end of the first round. He's a good player. Don't get me wrong. Gregory Rousseau was a very good player at the University of Miami, but, is that a need position? Is that somewhere that you need as opposed to a defensive back? You saw what the Chiefs did to them in the AFC Championship game last year. So that's going to be the question right there. More importantly, Florida State had 4 draft picks. I think that was kind of impressive to me that Florida State was able to get 4. They had some predictions had 6. I said 4 last week. I'm surprised that they were able to get those 4. The same number of draft picks that the University of Miami had. Just throwing that out there.
We're now satisfied with having the same?
No, I just think that was a lot of smack talk from Miami who thought they were so much better and they had the same number of draft picks as a 3 and 6 team. So, yep. Just remember how you used to be good, Miami.
2 in the first round.
4 total in the entire draft. Same number.
2 in the first round.
They won the first quarter. That's right.
They're 2 different measurements. They are 2 different measurements.
They won the first quarter.
They are two different measurements. Janarius Robinson goes in the 4th round to Minnesota.
I apologize to Janarius, and I will take the time here. I will admit I was wrong. I said that Janarius Robinson would be someone who may not even get drafted at all. I didn't think he had a lot of the resume tape during his time, but let's give him a shout out. I mean, he's the one that you wanted to get drafted the most, just because of both his on-field work ethic, the off-field story about what happened to his family's home during Hurricane Michael and how all his family struggled. But let's give him a shout out. He's going to go to Minnesota. Yeah, 4th round was a little high for me, but anyway, I think he's going to have a chance to go up there. I don't know what his future is going to hold in Minnesota. I don't think Minnesota is going to be his only NFL stop early in his career. I can see him on the move. Maybe not this season, but maybe next offseason.
Joshua Kando, he goes to Kansas City in that same 4th round.
Yeah, that's another one who you wonder both of them. I think Kando was somebody who was predicted to be a late 5th, early 6th round pick. He was somebody who had a lot of hope, a lot of promise, and then he had the injury in the 2019 season, was lost for the rest of the year after the injury of the Virginia game. Came out last year, had his biggest play of the season was the pick 6 against North Carolina. Is he a 4th round pick? I wouldn't have taken him if I'm an NFL guy in the 4th round. I would have probably said 5th round, early 6th round would have been my area. But you know what? Go get your money. Go get your money with the Chiefs. You're going to a team that is going to be in contention to a Super Bowl. I think that's going to be – I think he can be a definite – if he is healthy, if everything is completely healthy, I think he's somebody who could be a very good addition to Kansas City.
Then those New York Jets, they also selected there, in the 6th round, Hamsan Nasruddin out of the Florida State defensive unit.
This one's tough for me because, as you know, we've talked about this before, as a former diehard Dolphins fan, I am contractually obligated to hate everything about the New York Jets. So it hurts a little bit when the Jets draft a Florida State player. Nasruddin's another one that we talked about who was lost to an injury in 2019, didn't play nearly at all last season. So that was one thing you had to wonder, was that going to hurt him? But you saw this year a lot of the teams didn't take that into consideration. There were a lot of guys drafted early on in the 1st round, 2nd round who sat out all last season. So I don't think that really mattered to a lot of NFL teams. But the Jets have already said that they're going to move him to linebacker. That's going to be my question. Can Nasruddin move to linebacker in the NFL? Can he be a prototype linebacker? I don't know. I think he's still a secondary player. I think he's going to be somebody, if you want to use that kind of Tampa 2 defense, he's going to play a little bit more safety and then kind of platoon at linebacker. That'd be the best move for him because physically I don't think he can play linebacker in the NFL.
Lavernius Coles was the first player that came to mind when you made that Florida State connection with the New York Jets.
Yeah, don't remind me because he had that game, the when they came back in 2000 on Monday Night Football against the Dolphins. That's a bad moment. It's a bad moment in my life.
Are the Jets any more of a rival than the Patriots or the Bills?
I look at it this way. The Jets and the Patriots are like the Dolphins like the Gators and the Canes. The Gators and the Canes is not the way. The Patriots were like the Canes. You can dislike them, but you also have to respect them because they won. The Canes had 5 national titles. Patriots had 6 Super Bowls. You had to have that respect level. You can dislike, but you have to respect. The Gators were like the Jets. They rarely won. Yes, they had that run of 2 titles in 3 years in 2006, 2008, but for the most part, they had 1 title in their first 100 years of playing football. The Jets have 1 Super Bowl that they're still talking about from Super Bowl III in the 1968 season, 1 in January 1969, and their fans are annoying. The Jets are a lot of trash talkers, and they have nothing really to back it up. Plus, I hate the Jets. You're not going to get me to say nice things about the Jets.
I'm failing to find the comparison in winning traditions between the Florida Gators and the New York Jets. The Jets are typically a laughing stock in the NFL, and the Florida Gators are a top 10 program in college football.
Only in the last, I'd say, probably 20, 25 years. The first 85 years, they were not the Gators that you've seen since the mid-90s. You would even
nobody was in Florida.
Well,
pre-1980.
The Florida State Seminoles dynasty began in 87. Come on. You're not going to give me to say
that was a couple of years prior.
You will not get me to say nice things about the Florida Gators. You will not give me. You know what? I take that back. Shout out to the Gators. They had 8 draft picks. Congratulations, 8 Gators in the NFL. We'll give them that one shout out. Other than that, you will not get me to say anything nice about the Gators or the Jets. It's not going to happen, Mark. You can try. It's not going to happen.
Florida won its first national championship in 1996. Florida State won its first in 1993.
Correct. It's not going to happen, Mark. We started playing
I'm not seeing the distinguishing factor of when they became prominent.
They started playing football in 1906. We started in 1947. It's not going to happen, Mark. You move. We need to move on. Talk about Marvin Wilson. Talk about Tamarian Terry.
Marvin Wilson.
It's not going to happen.
Who may have plummeted down the board more than any player from what would have been a 2020 selection to 2021.
And made more as a free agent signing than the Browns are reportedly going to give some of the players who actually did get picked. So
really?
Shout out to Marvin. He's got some guaranteed money coming his way in Cleveland. But I guess my question would be, if it's so confident you're going to give him guaranteed money, why didn't Cleveland pick him? I mean, I get that he did not have the tape during the 2020 season that would earn a draft pick, but he is good. He is a talented player on the field. And I agree with a lot of things off the field that he did, and people can disagree here. But yeah, I don't know why you're going to give him all that guaranteed money and not draft him. That's my biggest question right there. And Tamarian Terry is somebody else who I thought somebody would take a late round pick on him. He goes undrafted. Now he goes to a Seattle team. That's interesting. You're going to be in a wide receiver room with somebody like a DK Metcalf. So you're going to get to learn from him. You've got somebody throwing you the ball who's a Super Bowl winning quarterback. It's not a great situation to not get picked and to have your stock fall, but that's a darn good team he's going to in Seattle, and that's going to be an interesting team that's going to, I think, could be poised to make a deep playoff run in 2021.
So where do you stand on Marvin Wilson's off the field incidents?
I agree. I think a lot of people didn't want to give him credit because he was very confrontational with Mike Norvell, especially during the summertime months with a lot of the Black Lives Matter movements and whatnot. I personally, and we've talked about it, I agree with his position on a lot of those issues. I think that I don't think that that's why he dropped. I think he dropped because of his performance. His performance on the field in 2020 was nowhere close to 2019. That's why he went undrafted. My biggest question, though, is if you're going to give him all that guaranteed money, that Cleveland has said, we are going to give you this guaranteed money more than we are going to guarantee players that we actually drafted, then why didn't you pick him? That's my biggest question if you're Cleveland.
Okay, folks, you ultimately produce this show. So Jason and I will continue to talk, but of course, we're going to take your comments and your questions to air. Don't see anything here thus far. And that's pretty much it on the NFL draft. But again, leave your comments and questions, and we'll get to them if anything comes up. All right. 4 drafted by Florida State, and you can go to your various websites and look up where Florida State stands all time. I think we talked about that a bit last week. The higher draft picks, Florida State ranks higher than overall draft picks, meaning the quality of the selections have been better than the overall, which took a long time to catch up to Jason's point that Florida State didn't come into prominence didn't start playing football until 1947, didn't come to prominence until later than the rest of the powers across the nation. All right. Name, image, and likeness. So this is something that has momentum. It has support. Just the way of the world and the way of our the liberties and the rights that we're giving to the collegiate athlete. I'm not saying that in a derogatory way whatsoever. Lets us know that this is coming. And Florida's out in front of it in becoming the first state to declare and legislate that this will be part of the process and allowed.
Yeah, and we talked about it a little bit last week. There was a controversy because last week was the end of the legislative session here in the state of Florida. Legislators will come back over the next couple of weeks to kind of tidy up some stuff, but it was the last day of the session. Last week of the session. The controversy was that there was a writing into one of the bills that the name, image, and likeness was not going to start until 2022. that raised holy hell with guys like Mackenzie Milton, who took to social media and said, essentially, this is bogus. This needs to happen sooner than later. And voila, over the next 48 hours before the session ended, it got done in this year. So this summer is when everything will start to kick in here in the state of Florida. I'm for it. And I'm going to tell you why. I feel like, I had to work my way through college. I had to work my way. I was given the chance. I had scholarships that paid for my tuition, paid for most of my fees, but I had to pay for housing. I had to pay for books. I was a fat guy. I had to eat. I found beer. I liked the taste of beer, so I had to drink beer. I had to gas to get back and forth between, Central Florida and North Florida. I was given that chance. I don't feel like athletes are getting that chance. And the argument that a lot of people say is, oh, athletes are getting everything paid for. To a certain extent. And if James was on here, he could talk. Yes, you get food during the week, but what about during the weekends? Yes, you get your tuitions paid, you get your fees paid, you get your books paid. But for a lot of people, especially with a sport like football, a lot of these guys don't have money. They don't have money to experience to go out and live like college kids. I'm not saying that athletes should be paid the same as NFL players. I will say that 100%. I don't think Mackenzie Milton should be making the same money that Trevor Lawrence is going to make in Jacksonville or that Tua Tagovailoa will make in Miami this year. But they should be getting something, whether it's minimum wage, whether it's this in 20 hours a week minimum wage because of the 20 hours for practice and games that players are allowed to take part in. There has to be something. As far as the name, image, and likeness, I don't think it's fair that EA Sports, based here in Maitland, Florida, is making, hundreds of millions, if not close to billions of dollars on video games, which used to include college football, and the athletes are not getting anything from it. If you want to set up a fund to where if you get a degree, you get a bonus, if you want to do something like that, that's fine. I can make it work. But an athlete has to get something. You cannot exploit an athlete's likeness and not give them anything in return and just say, oh, well, you're getting a scholarship out of it. That's bogus. And I actually do want to hear your opinion on this, Mark, because I know, we're different on the political spectrum, but I want to get your opinion on this.
Well, I have always stated that anytime I hear that an athlete is not being compensated for being a student athlete for all the reasons you just cited, I think that's a pretty inadequate, invalid argument or stance. I believe that they are compensated, that they are, again, granted a college education, which is extremely valuable, and they are housed, and they are also given meal money. I don't know the particulars of that. You just cited that they are fed during the week, not necessarily on the weekends.
You get fed during the week, and I believe, and this is the way it used to be, but you used to get I think it's $30 or $40 or something for the weekend. Which, as you can tell, if you're somebody like a Marvin Wilson or a Robert Cooper, that's what, one meal? That's one dinner? I mean, that's the thing that there's in a lot of cases is you've got a lot of these guys who need something. That's what I'm saying. There has to be something.
Sure. If people are out spending $30 and $40 for one meal, then that there might need to also be some kind of introductory class on budgeting and how to use money. So
absolutely.
If anybody's using $40 per meal, man, that's, you're spending thousands of dollars a month. Regardless, let's not get into the weeds about that. So I am all for the name, image, and likeness portion of it because they're being exploited. So they are the commodity that's being used to make millions and billions of dollars for schools, television networks, conferences, go on down the line. So that they should receive some portion of that. I think that they should also receive or have the opportunity to capitalize on their celebrity. So in addition to that they should receive or have the opportunity to sign autographs, go to shows, memorabilia, so forth and so on, that it should be sanctioned by the school or the conference to make sure that there's no filthy hands involved in unsavory elements that get involved in those sorts of things. So it's more complicated than just that. But I do believe that the The athletes should be able to capitalize on their celebrity, but I do not agree with this that they need to get paid. Again, let's compensate them to the degree that they can be housed and fed, and they get the scholarship and the education.
So when you went to Kent State, when you graduated from Kent State, did you have a scholarship there, or did you have to work to pay for your fees and tuition and everything, or did you have a scholarship to go to Kent State?
Yeah, so between my parents and myself, I had a job the entire time I was in high school and college, and worked and so forth and so on. And I know that they don't have that opportunity to go out and because their sport is a job.
Right, and that's why I feel like I had the chance to, and I had bright futures, I had prepaid, but I still had to pay for books, pay for everything else. So I worked.
Yep.
I worked at a grocery store. I worked at a restaurant.
Me too.
I worked at university housing.
Yep.
So I had that chance. These guys don't have that chance. That's why I'm saying if you don't want, just using an example, Mackenzie Milton. If you don't want Mackenzie Milton working at a grocery store, I feel like he's got 20 hours a week of football. Pay him whatever the minimum wage is in the state of Florida for that 20-hour week. And since we talked about it, since a lot of high school kids don't know anything about basic economics, which scares the hell out of me personally, if you want to take the taxes out of it, make it a post-taxed amount. If it's $300, let's say you take the 20% off of that, that's $60. Give him a check for $240. That's his money. That's his spending cash for the week. And I feel like that's the best way right now to where you can get out of the paying them. And you'd be surprised. $240 would make a lot of players happy. That's what I'm saying. I don't think a lot of athletes are asking to get paid $1 million a year, though they wouldn't turn it down, but they just want a little something. They understand the luxury they're getting, but they also are in positions where they are being hamstrung by not being able to have the same opportunities that I had, that you had, or that thousands of other athletes at Florida State, the University of Florida, University of Miami, UCF, etc., are getting.
So I see it this way. I believe that their work in the form of the athletics, the practice time, the meetings, the film room sessions, all of it, working out, everything that they need to do as a student athlete, I believe that is compensated with the scholarship that is worth fill in the blank depending on the school. Okay. The two issues for me become when an athlete in particular comes from a certain background and are not able to care for themselves during those gaps of time in which the athletic program is not caring for them, namely feeding them. So I have an issue with that in that the athletes that come from a certain background, an impoverished background, has a disadvantage and is caught in a difficult situation and trying to just survive, make it. Okay. I also have an issue on the other side with the exploitation of athletes with the name, image, and likeness, and the amounts of money. Because in a perfect world, if we would take this back 75 years, then it's simply these athletes have a talent. They bring prestige and honor to the university. The universities make a small amount of money on ticket sales and a little bit of radio or something. And it's not a job. It's more the emphasis being on them as students, and then they're also athletes, and the schools aren't getting rich. Nobody's getting rich off the football team per se, but the popularity of the sport has exploded. People are making out, and these student athlete is left behind.
Oh, and I will say that it is, and I'm going to take a shot at your former employer for a second there over at the Worldwide Leader, because you could say that ESPN, when they first got into the game and started bidding for the sports, and everything got jacked up in the prices, and the fact that you've got, the SEC is a 14-team conference that has its own network right now. Essentially, everything's on, all their football's on CBS, as the main games. The Pac-12 has contracts with both ABC and Fox. You've got Notre Dame. Notre Dame only has 6 home games, and all of them are nationally televised on NBC. They have 7 this coming year, and all of them will be nationally televised by NBC. You can blame it. That's what has happened. TV has turned this into a billion-dollar enterprise, and it's a different argument from when my father was a part of the FSU football team in the early 70s, from when you were at Kent State in the 80s. It's a much different animal, and I feel like that there needs to be that adjustment to the times. We are at where we're at right now.
But we all, as fans, have benefited from the television networks getting involved and the proliferation and popularity explosion of the sport.
I agree. I do agree with that. All I'm saying is, and that's what I'm saying, do I think that every player on the Florida State football team should be making 6-figure salaries to play football? No, absolutely. I will argue against that completely, because I agree with you. You're getting everything paid for. You're getting your books paid for. You're getting your fees paid for. You're getting your tuition paid for. You're getting your food 5 days a week, and you only have to worry about weekends. You have housing if you choose to live in the housing that's a part of campus. You have that chance. That being said, I had a lot of that same stuff. I still had to work to pay. I still had the chance to do that. I feel like they should get something, because especially if you are bringing, and we'll talk about this a little bit more as we go on, with the ruling today from the state university system, that they are saying that it's looking like we will have a full stadium for every game this season. If you're telling me you've got 75,000 people, 75 to 80,000 people who will be inside Bobby Bowden Field for that first game against Notre Dame, and you're telling me that you can't give a player, let's say whatever our minimum wage here in the state of Florida is, $10 an hour, $30 to play that game, take a tax about $24 to play that game. If you're telling me right now that you can't do that, there is that's what I have a problem with.
I'm just trying to clarify that that's in addition to what they're already making. They are being paid as student athletes. They are being paid. Mm-hmm. Their scholarship's worth money.
But they're getting paid the same as a student at the school who is on a full ride. There are students at Florida State who are on full rides,
sure,
paid for the same as football players, and still have the chance to go out and make that.
Absolutely.
So that's all I'm saying.
Absolutely.
If you don't want Mackenzie Milton to go work at I'm just going to give a public service to a restaurant I used to go to in Tallahassee all the time. If you don't want him to work at Gordo's Cuban Restaurant on Pensacola Street, or Jim and Mills, or any other restaurant near campus, you need to give him something. There has to be some subsidy for his work that other students at the school have that chance. He has to have that same chance. That's all I'm saying. There has to be that equity.
And where I think that comes from is, again, you put the player likeness on a video game, on a T-shirt, on all these things. They should be able to profit from that, number one. Number two, I also think that there is a way to sanction memorabilia and autograph events and those sorts of things by the school / conference, and to do it the right way, and that the players would benefit from signing, 150 autographs at $5 a pop.
Or maybe we get Mackenzie Milton to come on here and we pay him.
We pay him from what?
Well, Ronan gives us money. He gives us $13.78 a week.
Yes.
That's an hour of
that's it.
Here in the state of Florida. There we go. We'll pay you. So Mackenzie Milton, if you are listening, we will pay you for an hour of work to come on here and be our guest next week.
Yes.
DM Mark and let him know if you can.
Mackenzie, after we pay YouTube and taxes and I get my cut, then we'll pay you and we'll be all set.
So we can have him on for about 10 minutes.
I don't know what his going rate would be based on the response today.
I mean, you can blame me. It's fine. I know Logan's not drunk enough to be here. James's Wi-Fi is not working. I don't know. So I'm sorry, guys. I apologize.
Hey, Jason, without you, I'd be here stumbling around talking some Florida State, and then I'd probably open it up after about 3 minutes to whatever anybody wanted to talk about. So
So we're going to keep it talking about Florida State. And you know what else we're going to do? Since we're at the halfway point and Logan has decided that work is more important than us, which we're not mad, Logan. We're just disappointed. Hit the like button. Guys, if you hit the like button, not only does Mark get a higher chance at being the profitable multimillionaire doing this, but you get the best Florida State information possible. You get the best opinions possible from Logan, from James, from myself, and an angel gets his wings. An angel will get his wings if you hit the like button.
The goal would be that someday you can Google highest paid YouTubers, and I would be somewhere on that list. You know, YouTube millionaires.
I wonder who is the highest paid.
I've looked it up before. It's been a long, long time ago, but all sorts of people that I've never heard of that are making $8 and $10 million a year on YouTube.
You have Logan Paul, who's going to get his butt kicked by Floyd Mayweather down here in June. The Paul brothers, so you have that. Yeah.
What's that have to do with what we're talking about?
You were asking we were talking about who the highest paid millionaires were. I'm just trying to figure that out.
I'm highest paid YouTubers.
Yeah, I'm multitasking here. I'm just multitasking. I got 12 things going on in my head, so I'm picking them.
Okay. Yeah, we would like to be doing this for a long, long time, folks. So just keep that in mind. Always looking for revenue streams, which brings me to the Amazon link in the description section. Use that, please, and help us build the channel. It's the same shopping experience. Join me on Patreon. That's a whopping 15 cents a day. Ronan's on there. Phil's on there. Who knows who else? I believe David Knight's on there from the live chat on Patreon. And we've got a website that we launched about 2 months ago, voiceofcollegefootball.com.
That's $4.50 a month. You have $4.50 a month, people. For the best insight in the world from Jason Parker and Mark Rogers, you've got this, guys. It's worth the $4.50. I promise you. Yes, I gave myself a plug there, Mark.
It's well done. All right, David on the FSU training table.
And you get the training table, and James has talked about this before, how you get the 2 meals a day, that you could go get your 2 meals, and then, yeah, and thank you, David hit the point right there.
I'm not understanding this $30 for a meal. Like, I understand one meal. Like, I went out to dinner last night with my daughter, and I spent way over $30. I understand that for one meal, but it's not like we're going out spending $50 every time we eat. If you did that as an individual, think about this. If you spent 30 a day, 30 a meal, and round it off, $100 a day, seriously, you're going to spend $3,000 a month on food.
So let's say they give them a number of, let's up it up. Let's say they're very liberal with it. Let's say they give them $50 a weekend. Okay. In Tallahassee, I'm 5'10", 190 pounds. Actually, 189. I'll knock off that pound. I'm 5'10", 189 pounds right now. I go to, let's say, Jim and Mills for breakfast, and I get, a one pancake, and I get a bacon, egg, and cheese biscuit sandwich. That's my breakfast right there. That's $10 right there alone of a $50 meal. Then you got dinner. Let's say I go to Hooters and I get, I order $25 worth of food. So that's one day, and I'm getting $15, and I've already spent $35. That's not including drinks, tips, and everything else. Now all of a sudden I'm on day 2 and I've got maybe $10 left at the most. That's where the problem comes in. That's where what I'm saying. If you pay them, $25 for playing a game, that's a little something. That's a little something that could help. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Your numbers make sense, but my numbers make sense as well, that if somebody's spending $30 on average per meal, they've got a problem.
Well, but that's also because we're looking at it as, I'm not going to ask you what your weight is, but like I said, I'm 190 pounds. Marvin Wilson's what, 320 pounds? 330 pounds?
Regardless, they're going to be spending over $100. If you spend $100 a day eating, you would be spending over $3,000 per month on food.
And
I know I don't spend $3,000 a month on food.
Do you want your players going to where they're going to get cheap stuff like a McDonald's or a Wendy's where it's cheap but it's also crap? Or do you want them going someplace where they're going to get a decent meal? The same meal the same quality meal that they would get at the training tables. So you have two options. You either don't pay them and open the training tables up 7 days a week, allow them to have that stuff like that. If you want to do that, okay, then that's the argument. But you can't.
That's what I do.
Then that's fine. And if you want to do that the way and give them that same chance, I can maybe go in towards that. But if you're not going to do that, you can't get away with not giving them something. It can't be. Yeah, we're going to keep it closed. Best of luck. Here's your $40. Best of luck. It's got to be one way or the other. Thank you, Sammy Miami. Appreciate the $5.
Sammy Miami, thank you so much for that. We appreciate that. I do in particular. Jason gives of his time. So keep that in mind when you're ridiculing and criticizing Jason at times, that he gives of himself each and every week, as does Logan and James.
He was giving a compliment. He said, "Go Knowles." I'm sure there's other people ridiculing me in the comment section.
Well, no. I'm not talking about Sammy Miami. I'm just making it clear that I benefit from that, though. So thank you so much for that, Sammy Miami. But Jason gives of his time each and every week.
I do. I ate my salad early tonight just for this. I'm going to be hungry tomorrow for breakfast. Hopefully, I have my $30 stipend.
So what is going to be fascinating, and I would like to be there, and maybe we could make sure that there would be a second camera there that could not only be taping and recording Mike Norvell's responses to you, but it could be recording both of you interacting. That would be phenomenal.
So for those, and we're going to do this here. We've got 20 minutes left here with Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. So here's what I want, viewers. I want this Saturday, yours truly, Jason Parker from WTVJ, NBC6 Miami, and going to be interviewing the greatest 3-6 coach in Florida State football history, Mike Norvell. He's they're doing these youth camps starting this Thursday in West Palm Beach. Friday will be in Lauderhill, just outside Fort Lauderdale. And then they're doing 2 camps here in Miami on Saturday, and I'm getting a chance to interview him at one of them. So fans, I want you, and Mark is going to put up some of the better ones. I'm going to let him judge. What questions should I ask Mike Norvell? What questions do you want to know from the head coach of the Florida State Seminoles, Mike Norvell? And we will play them next week right here on Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football.
I guarantee that if anybody attaches their questions to a super chat, I will get them to Jason. If not, I don't know. I'm not going to search through the entire live stream for questions. If
you give $10, I will definitely ask the question. At least $10. If you give a $10 contribution to Mark Rogers, yes, I can be bought.
Jason, just to protect you, I would like to say, not to cut you off, but just to protect you, I would say under certain circumstances, because you can't guarantee that you're going to ask anything for $10.
A football question. A specific football question about the
legitimate question.
Season. Yes, it has to be legitimate. Don't be dumbasses, fans. Don't be stupid fans. Don't be Miami fans. We're better than that. But I want you to legitimately ask legitimate football questions. I will ask Mike Norvell. It's exciting. I'm excited for this moment. I get to interview the best 3-win coach in Florida State history. It's going to be amazing.
Where is this going to be aired?
It'll be on NBC6.com. It'll start to be aired on Sunday. I'll be editing and putting it together. We're going to do a whole article talking about that. And so we're going to have this moment. And I think it's good that he's coming down here. We've talked about it. They're starting to get their ties to South Florida. And he's starting to get some of these players, starting to get some of these recruits up here. And I think it's good. And we've talked about this before. Even Luther Campbell, Uncle Luke, the great Kane fan of all time, he's pushing he's an assistant coach at one of the high schools down here. He's trying to get people to go take part of this. The big thing right now is getting eyes on the players, getting eyes on the talent down here. This is to me the greatest area of high school football talent in the country is Broward County, Miami-Dade County. So it's getting these guys the attention they want. And I think Mike Norvell and Florida State is smart because they're doing this all over the state. They're going to be going to places like Fort Myers, Tampa, Orlando, Lakeland, Jacksonville. So it's going to be all over the state, but you're starting in South Florida. You're starting in the area you need to make it known. Bobby Bowden was able to recruit South Florida. He was able to get more guys than a lot of other schools. It was basically Miami And then Florida State got more than any other school when it came to recruiting in South Florida. Florida State needs this area. Florida State cannot go back to being the dynasty era of Florida State, the 2013 national champion Florida State, without getting Broward County and Miami-Dade County. That's just a fact. Without those two counties, Florida State will be a middle-of-the-road team.
How much time do you get with him?
I mean, it all depends. I can probably get, how much time you want. We will hold him. I was going to say.
No, I'm just curious how much it was. There a certain amount of time scheduled with him.
I mean, the media availability time starts at 10 and the camp starts at 11. So if nobody shows up, I may get the whole hour. Who knows?
I'll be intrigued to see if you have a different impression of him based on just how he interacts with everyone and yourself and how he comes across or what he has to say.
I'm going in this with the attitude of I'm doing my job as a reporter, doing my job game as a reporter. I don't hate, and for the fans who said, oh, you have a hate for Mike Norvell, I don't. I will always give Mike Norvell the respect because he is Florida State's coach. And I'm a Florida State alum. I will always respect the coach of our football team. But with that respect, you just have to admit, we went 3-6. Last year was a disappointing year. Now the question is, can we move on in the future? Can we talk football? 21-1 wants to know.
I thought we were talking football.
He's got a shark as his icon, so he really, I don't know, trying to think of a college team named the Sharks.
He's talking about the live chat there. So I'm going to make some statements about my perception of your thoughts about Mike Norvell, and you confirm or correct me. Okay.
Go ahead. And then I want you to come up. I'm going to get Mark. I want you to give me the question you want me to ask Mike Norvell.
Okay. So my thought process is, number one, that, of course, you believed that Willie Taggart was unjustly let go. Not that he was doing a great job, not that the team was getting the job done on the field, but he was not given a sufficient amount of time.
Correct.
Okay. So we start there. Then Mike Norvell, then Florida State goes on a head coaching search. And of course, with the prominence of the program, you would expect we hear all sorts of great names, as we typically do when a Florida State-like program vacancy is there. And so they hire Mike Norvell. You were disappointed that they went to a group of 5 coach, albeit a successful one at a high-ranking program that's arguably the best group of 5 or was under him, but still a group of 5 level coach to fill that vacancy.
Not necessarily I was disappointed that they hired Mike Norvell or that they hired a group of 5 coach. What I was disappointed about, going back to what you said, if Florida State finished 6-6, which I legitimately think they would have, I think if Willie Taggart's the head coach, I think they beat Boston College, I think they beat Alabama State, and then I think they get their butts handed to them by Florida. So I think things finish out the same.
Yeah.
Finish the year 6-6. If you want to fire Willie Taggart after the regular season finale against Florida, I would still have not agreed with it because I think you don't give somebody 2 seasons. But I would have understood. You let the season play out. You let it go from there. Mike Norvell's not somebody you fire Willie Taggart on November 3rd and then wait 5 weeks. Mike Norvell is somebody you fire Willie Taggart after the Florida game, fire him on Sunday, you call Mike Norvell on Monday. Mike Norvell's probably going to say yes. Mike Norvell's going to say, okay, yes, I will make this move. He is a guy you can hire within days. That's why I feel like there was all this, we're going to get, and once again, stupid fans, stupid media members, Urban Meyer's coming, Bob Stoops is coming, all these people are coming. No one was ever going to come to a Florida State program that at that point was 4-5, and you're telling somebody we're not going to give you more than 21 games as the coach of this team. That was my beef with the hiring of Mike Norvell. And I would have said this had they hired any other coach. So it was not a beef towards Mike Norvell. It was a beef of you don't fire a coach and then wait 5 weeks to hire somebody like Mike Norvell. That's a 1-week hire.
And since Mike Norvell has been hired, the on-field performance has been just as bad, if not worse, most likely worse. I would state worse based on, and I don't grade it out as as thoroughly as you and Logan and James do, but I keep track of it and watch the games and watch the prominent games. I didn't see him play Jacksonville State, for example, but they were worse. They were worse on the field this year than they were in either of the Willie Taggart seasons. Correct. I think we can agree there. Okay.
Correct. And for the record, let me just state this. We've talked about the fact of the 21-game threshold, that if Florida State plays their full 12 games in the regular season, that Norvell will have 21 games under his belt as coach.
Mm-hmm.
If they go 6-6 during this upcoming season, which could legitimately happen, he would have the same 9-12 record that Willie Taggart had through his first 21 games as head coach at Florida State.
Yes.
And we've talked about this. You've set that precedent that 9-12 is a fireable record because that's what you did with Willie Taggart. If Mike Norvell is 9-12, by that same precedent that you have set, he should be fired. Now, do I think he should be fired if he's 9-12? No, because I think you should be given a minimum of 3 seasons to prove whether you can or not. And for the record, I think Florida State will finish better than 6-6 this upcoming season. I think they're 7-5. Best case scenario, 8-4, but I think 7-5 would be if 7-5 would be a victory for me at Florida State this upcoming season, just because of the schedule, because of that brutal schedule. But if they are 6-6, you have to legitimately ask, okay, why is Willie Taggart fired after going 9-12, but not Mike Norvell? That's the question that has to be brought up.
And I think that's a valid question. I think it's valid, but my response would be, and this, again, I think there's a way to acknowledge something as being valid, but also say, I don't completely agree. So I understand where you're coming from. 9-12, 9-12. Why would this coach not get fired? But I do think that there's something to be said about evaluating the play.
Mm-hmm.
You can go 7-5 and beat the 7 teams you were supposed to beat. For example, Florida State, we've pointed out the 5 teams that unless something drastically changes, they're going to be a significant underdog against this coming season. So let's say they do win all the games they're supposed to win. They win those 7 and they get trampled the other 5. To me, that's a different 7-5 than 7-5. And they were really competitive against Notre Dame and Clemson and Florida. And they look like a pretty damn good 7-5 team for 7-5. So I think there's an evaluation to be made beyond just the record. Plus, if I could just make one other point, where he would have arrived at that 9-12 would be slightly different because he did go 3-6. And so that 6-6 would be a fairly decent improvement over the 3-6.
My comeback to that would be, yes, in Willie Taggart's first season, we went 5-7. We got trounced by Virginia Tech. We got trounced by Syracuse. We got trounced by NC State. We got whooped by Florida in the finale. Clemson just dog stomped us. In the 2019 season, we lost to Boise State, Wake Forest, and Virginia, 3 losses by a combined 14 points. Miami loss was a convincing loss, 27-10, and then the Clemson loss was a convincing loss to Clemson. But those 3 games were by a combined 14 points. 3 plays are the difference between Florida State being a 4-5 team and a 7-2 team at that point. So the argument is, if you're going to sit there and say, let's say Florida State does have better play this season, because Florida State looked bad against Louisville. Florida State looked bad against Pittsburgh. I get that we looked bad against Miami. We looked bad against Notre Dame. Those were good teams last year. Louisville was not 32 points better than us if you compare rosters. Pitt was not 24 points better than us if you compared rosters. But on the field, let's just say it, both those teams kicked our ass on the field this past season. My argument is this. If Willie Taggart still got fired, and I would say we played better in 2019 than we did in 2018, and I hate to use this term, but we had better losses in 2019 than we did in 2018, then why does Mike Norvell get credit if that same thing plays out in 2021 as opposed to 2020? If you're going to sit there and say we go 6-6, but our losses were by 5 points to Louisville, 6 points to Miami, closer losses, why is that okay, but it wasn't okay for Willie Taggart would be my question.
And I think that's legitimate. So you can look at it one of two ways. You can either say Mike Norvell should be set against the Willie Taggart standard, at which he better go better than 9-12 after this upcoming regular season, or whoever, the administration, made a mistake with Willie Taggart, or at least jumped the gun. Things weren't headed. They didn't look good, but jumped the gun. Yes, made a decision way too early, a season and 3 games too early, versus this is a different situation. And for Mike Norvell's sake, and for doing what seems reasonable, they should give him a 3rd season, unless they completely tank this year. If they go 2-10, then I'm not going to defend in any way that performance if he gets fired.
And that's why, if you look at our schedule, the Notre Dame game is going to be more than likely a Florida State loss. Florida State will start off with a loss for the 5th straight season, in all likelihood. It's going to be what happens after that. Right, and FSU Bones makes an excellent point. We can't afford to pay if Norvell gets fired. His buyout would be too much. So we're with Norvell for at least 3 seasons. So that's that point. But it's going to be what happens after that. It's going to be what happens the second game against Jacksonville State. It's going to be that game against Wake Forest. It's going to be the game against Louisville, against Syracuse. It's going to be those games. It's going to be the fact that Florida State's going to have to build up through the first 7 games of the season, which Florida State could decently be a 5-2 team heading into those last 5 games of the season. The problem is those last 5 games of the season, once again, Clemson, NC State, Miami, Boston College, Florida. Legitimately, all 5 teams Florida State could lose to if Florida State plays like Florida State did last season. So that's going to be the question right now here, Florida State. Does Florida State get one of those games? I think they can beat Boston College. I think that's at least a win that gets you bowl eligible. But is that what Florida State is now? Is that what we become, a team that's more worried about just being bowl eligible? Because if that's what it is, then it's a sad state of where we are, done by Jimbo not caring towards the end, Willie Taggart not being ready for the job, and depending on what happens, is Mike Norvell as bad or worse than Willie Taggart?
Yeah, if Mike Norvell fails in trying to rebuild Florida State, we'll never know as to whether it's certainly going to be easy to determine, okay, he wasn't good enough to rebuild it, but could he have taken over a good program and just maintained it? We'll never know, because this program needed somebody who was going to just be good enough to overhaul the recruiting, clean up the culture, hold people accountable, and raise the level of play to what it was 7 or 8 years ago.
And like we've said, the 2016 season was the beginning of the end. Yes, it was a 10-3 record on paper, 10-3, 5th straight 10-win season. On paper, Orange Bowl victory looks great. Beat Florida, Miami for the 4th straight season of beating both your rivals. It was great. But you look at the fact that it included a 4th quarter comeback just to beat NC State, a blocked extra point to beat Miami. You're getting blown out by Louisville. You're losing to a North Carolina team that you had no business losing to North Carolina. You're giving up 35 points to USF. You're down 28-6 to an Ole Miss team that I don't think Ole Miss was that good that season. There's all those variables you can see where you're starting to see the writing on the wall of, okay, what's going on here? And then you have the start of the 2017 season. You're losing to an NC State team you have no business losing to. You're losing at the last with 6 seconds to go against Miami. It's like starting to see it right there. You're starting to see, okay, maybe we're not as good as we were. I'm waiting
Absolutely.
You still haven't given me your question.
My question for Mike Norvell. I'm trying to think of something that is probably not going to be asked, because all the standard stuff is going to be asked. I will DM my question. I could spit out a zillion questions. I'm sitting here all day asking all sorts of football questions. I can ask questions, but I want it to be Want it
If
to be
Mike Norvell-
meaningful.
If Mike Norvell was here right now, what would be your question?
My question would be, what was the state of the program in his eyes when he took it over versus what he was expecting to see? And what were his priorities out of the gate in addressing those issues?
That's a good question. It's like you do this professionally.
At one time.
You do it. Okay, cool. I like that. I think I will actually ask that question.
Thank you, sir.
I was going to blow up smoke up Logan's butt, not ask him whatever question he had, but that's actually a good question. I'll ask that one.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how honest he is versus, of course, he's going to want to say nice things about the program because he wants to respect what came before him. But at the same time, is he going to be honest about, like, for example, John Cooper took over Ohio State in 1988, and he flatly said, I'm surprised at the lack of talent on an Ohio State roster. I expected it to be much better than it is.
Ohio State was still pretty decent when he took over.
Yeah, they were.
John Cooper also, what was his record against Michigan?
At Ohio State?
Yeah.
2-10-1.
Yeah, so sorry, John. I think John really knew what he was getting into there. But.
Ironically, a lot of people thought that John Cooper, one of the big reasons he was hired was that 2 seasons prior to getting the Ohio State job, he beat Michigan in the Rose Bowl.
At Arizona State.
Yeah. Then he couldn't beat them at Ohio State, even though he was favored most of those games.
But then the argument could be made, did he leave that Tressel 2002 national title team, or was that all Tressel's work?
That was John Cooper's team, most of it. Yeah, that was a senior-laden team, and obviously, there was a mixture of classes, but yeah, that would have only been Tressel's second, so the sophomores and freshmen, the true freshmen and sophomores were Tressel's, and everybody else was John Cooper's.
I like that question. That question's a good one. I'll put a star by that. I got to ask him about the cornrows, right?
All right, folks. Jason Parker has saved us this week. Yes, sir.
If Florida State wins the ACC, will you cornrow your hair for the bowl game? I feel like that should be a question. Yes. No? Maybe? That should be the final.
I'm trying to come up with a way to see whether he's got some kind of deal like that between he and the team.
I feel like we should. Yeah, I'll ask that question. Not cornrows. We're going to set. So stay tuned next week. Come back with us. Logan will actually get off work. James will get his Wi-Fi fixed somehow, or he'll find a park that has Wi-Fi in Jacksonville. And we will play for you my interview with the greatest 3-6 coach since 1975, Mike Norvell.
That'll be tremendous. Can't wait for that.
Look forward.
All right. He is Jason Parker of NBC6 and interviewee of Mike Norvell this Saturday, and he has saved our show for this week. So much applause and accolades to Jason.
I'll send you my form for my check this week.
That's it. All right. We have done this 105 straight weeks. So everybody be back here next Wednesday at 6 Eastern. We'll talk more Florida State football. All right, Jason. Thank you.
Thank you, bud.